Okay, so we have 2 weeks left in CEG 111, and so we're going to expand on the GPS work we've been doing, especially with the collector app. And we're going to spend the last 2 weeks doing a final project. The final project is going to be to create your own GPS data collection project in your neighborhood. If you want to do it somewhere else, or if there is somewhere else you can do it, you're welcome to do that. I know many of us are limited on the places we can go and the things that we can do. So I thought we would do it from our neighborhood to start. And so what I'm going to do is share my screen here. Can you all see this map here? Is that what y'all are looking at?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to go over and look at a couple of things. We're going to kind of build this out together as we go here a little bit, and just kind of show you what I'm thinking. So there's a workflow and a process to creating one of these projects from start to finish. And so I put this final project section up here on Moodle, and I'll be building it out during class right now, as well as, I don't know why that's restricted, as well as in the next day or so. So what I thought I'd do, instead of even just working with this as much, is I'm going to make a Google document and kind of just outline the process you need to be thinking about. I did move this sample database design document down here so that we could look at it, because this is really your first step, is to think through what you're going to collect out in the field using GPS. And this is one that we usually build together as a class for campus. And we kind of start it in class together. And then we go out on campus and we do what we call a field reconnaissance. So when you database design, first off, it's the process of thinking through what your database is going to store. Okay, so people design databases outside of the GIS world all the time. In the GIS world, when we design a database, we have to come up with we have to think through certain elements of the database prior to building the database. So I'll just start a document here and kind of start building it out. I'm going to call it Final Project. You will all have GPS data collection. You'll all have access to this, and we'll just look at the steps of it. So the first step is design your database. So when you think about designing your database, in the GIS world, you have to determine what layers will be in the database. All right. Now, since the Esri Collector app allows us to create these layers directly in ArcGIS Online, we're not even building an actual geodatabase. You know, we learned about building geodatabases this semester. Those are local desktop GIS data formats. When these data formats, we learned about the geodatabase, about shape files. These are local, again, desktop-based GIS data formats. When these data formats are either pushed up to the web, to ArcGIS Online, or when they're created in ArcGIS Online, the data formats are based in web-based technologies, and they're essentially web services. So they're published from a website, ArcGIS Online, and can be consumed by a user sitting at the computer like I am right here. It's analogous to a web page, all right? Web pages are stored on a server, and you're sitting at your desktop and you open a web browser and you put in a web address, and the web page comes down as a web service into your browser. So web pages are web services. They're a service provided to us sitting at our computer from a server. And that's how GIS data works when it's online as well. So we have to determine what layers will be in the database. We're not going to do a geodatabase in this case. We're just going to build them directly in ArcGIS Online. And they're called things like feature layers. You created a feature layer. So we'll see that as we look back at the exercise y'all did this past week. So you determine what layers will be in the database. So when we start thinking about what are you going to GPS around your neighborhood, can you all think of some, when we think about our database, we'll create some point features, some line features, and some polygon features. What kind of things out in your neighborhood might you store in a database as points?
Fire hydrants.
What's that?
Fire hydrants.
Fire hydrants. That's a good points layer. Yep. What else? How about manholes, maybe? Maybe trees. Maybe signs. Do you think trees and signs and manholes would all go in the same GIS layer?
Yes.
They're points, yeah.
They're all points, but remember over the semester we've learned how GIS layers are thematic in nature, meaning that all the features, all the types of objects in a GIS layer are similar in nature. And they need to have the same sets of attributes is a big thing about it. So trees need to have a set of attributes that are very different than manholes or than fire hydrants. And so they're all points, but they go in different layers. So you walk around and you go look in your neighborhood and you try to determine what point layers you're going to have that you want to collect data for. So for each layer, you need to determine the geometry, whether you're going to store a point line or a polygon. Point, line, or polygon. All right. You need to determine the spatial reference or the coordinate system information. All right. So we'll probably we'll look at that and talk about that as we continue to go. You'll choose the same spatial reference for all your layers. Maybe we'll do them all in state plane. Since all this data is going up to ArcGIS Online, when you're sharing, state plane coordinates are a really common coordinate system for counties, and lots of surveyors use it. When you're pushing everything up online, there's this coordinate system called the Web Mercator that's really common. So maybe we'll all just use Web Mercator for all of our data. And so, all right, and then we need to determine the attributes for each layer. Okay, so let's say we've all decided one of our layers is going to be trees. When you create your tree layer, you have to decide, you have to pick point, line, or polygon. Okay, that's why you think this through. So when you go to actually build it, you know my trees layer is going to be points, and you know you're going to have it this spatial reference, and then you're going to have to put in the fields you want to collect for it. And so the attributes or the fields you want to think through and come up with what fields. And so the attributes or the fields, okay? And for the fields, you need to determine the name. There's a lot of properties, the attributes, fields for each layer, and their properties. So Fields have data types. So for your attribute, for your fields, you need to give it a name, a type. That's a data type. Data type. Is it going to store text, numbers, dates? Is it going to have a drop-down list? Will it have, if text, will it have a drop-down list? And if it's going to have a drop-down list, you need to know all the valid values for that drop-down list. Okay, let's say you're GPSing light poles in your neighborhood. And so you say, well, I think light poles, I think I should have a field for my light poles for material, because I know there's some wooden ones and some metal ones out there. Okay, so you make a drop-down list that you can pick, metal or wood. All right, but the thing about database design is you want to, this is the reason you spend time designing your database, so that you don't just think, oh yeah, I'll just do a wood and a metal one, and then you go out and you start GPSing all these light poles and you realize, oh, there's some plastic ones and there's some other kind of material, there's some concrete ones. So you think through your database, the database design, essentially thinking through what's going to go in your database. You're always going to refine your database a little bit as you go. You can never plan for everything, but you want to plan for as much as you can so that it saves time down the road. Okay, we'll have a drop-down list. If so, need all the valid values, right? And then other properties, name, type, and other properties. So for text fields, there is a length option. By default, a text field can store 255 characters. I think it is. Maybe it's 250. If you know your text field is going to be a field that only has yes and no in it, you know, if it's a field of does the manhole need repair? Repair, yes or no. If you know that field only needs values of a maximum of 3 characters, you don't need 250 characters reserved for it. So for true efficient database design, you'd want to take that default 255 length for that field and say it only needs to be 3 characters. It only needs to store 3 because every value is going to be yes or no. And that makes databases more efficient. In a database like this, I mean, it's not that big a deal to leave the 250 length in there, but it's just something you want to think about and have on the forefront of your mind. So what happens if you choose a length of 3 and then you realize you need to put something that's got 10 characters in there? You can't do it. Okay, so you don't want to make it shorter than you might need because that causes bigger problems. All right, so you got to think through all the attributes. You got to think through what type of information they're going to store, and then other properties. And why is that? That's because when you go to create a field, it's going to ask you that information. It's going to say, hey, what kind of data type is it? What kind of properties does it have for it? So you want to include that stuff in your database design. And the more time you spend coming up with all this for each layer, then when you go to create the layers, you just plug the information in. Okay, so what you're going to start this week, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to build a little database design document that has all the information in it similar to this. So light poles, and now some of these are a little bit different because this database design document was to be built in a different software that you don't have all these options. But just as an example, light poles, point feature class, each attribute, height is numeric, number of lights is numeric, material is a menu, that's a drop-down menu, a date, a time, and then a comment field. Okay, so what I always tell students, so for the material for light poles, these are the values: steel, poly, wood, and other. Anytime I do a drop-down list, I always put an other field, an other value, so that it builds in just a little bit of flexibility into your database. So if you do get out there and you find there's another value, you can say other. And then I'll always also have a comment field so that I could put a comment that during light pole had a material of something I didn't plan on. It was this kind of thing. You don't want that happening a lot. That's why you design your database, right? So I will update this design document a little bit to better reflect what it looks like when you build these layers in ArcGIS online, to give you a little bit of a template to go for. And I'll work on that tonight. But you can start thinking about all the features that you're going to collect in your neighborhood, and start thinking through some of this stuff. So, all right. So database design. Now, another big thing that you do, all right, so your database design. Once you start, it's database design is a cyclical process. Usually you've got a client that wants you to do something. They tell you what they want you to do. And so you go back to your office and you start designing the database for everything you're going to collect for them. And then you take it back to them and you show it to them. And they say, oh, God, that's great. God, I didn't even think about all this, but I really think we need this in it, because they don't know much about it. And so you go back and forth, right? And you work on these revisions of it. And then you might even go to a small pilot area so that then you can show them the product, because you don't want to go spend 2 weeks GPSing a bunch of stuff and bring them the product and then be like, oh, golly, I really wish for every of those 400 trees you collected, you put in there the diameter of the canopy or the condition of the tree, because you don't want to go back to 400 trees to get that one thing about each tree. It'd take you another 4 days. So, or however long. So you think through your database, you come up with all you can, you go to your client, and then you make sure to also do some field reconnaissance. So reconnaissance, is that right? Oh, look at that. No, close. There's an I in there somewhere. Field reconnaissance. Think through what you want. I mean, maybe you just scratch it out on a napkin, but then go walk around your neighborhood. Let's think about if you want to create a signs layer, all right? You want to collect all the signs in your neighborhood. And so you think, yeah, I'm going to do a drop-down list for the type of the sign. I know there's a stop sign and a yield sign. I know there's a bus stop sign, and so you build this drop-down, but until you really go walk around in the neighborhood and really look at your signs, you really don't know what all kinds of attributes you need. Walking around, you'll be like, oh, golly, look, there's 3 different parks that have these fences over these steep parts of the park. I should GPS those fences. I didn't even think about a fences layer. So as you walk around, you think about layers that you should capture, and you think about attributes in layers that you knew you should capture. You start to better think about what kind of attributes you should have. So you go around, you do some field reconnaissance to explore the neighborhood, and layers you plan to create. Revisit design. Right. Once the design is together, you actually build the GIS layers in ArcGIS Online. AOL? No, that's not. ArcGIS. What's the, can't remember the acronym they put for ArcGIS on. I think it's AOL. I hate to, writing it down makes me think of the old AOL. So you build out your layers in ArcGIS Online. You create a web map and add your layers to the map. Symbolize. Layers, go out and collect data. And so is that create a web map? So is that kind of looking familiar to you from the process? Last time you built some layers in ArcGIS Online. You created a web map and added your layers to the map. Make certain maps, layers and map are shared with appropriate people. So if you wanted other people to use your layers and map, you need to make sure and share it with the group that all those people are in, like our class group. Really, you're the only one collecting data into this, so you own it. Just by the very virtue of that, your user created it. You're going to be able to use it on the collector app. So I want to emphasize this sharing thing because it's important for the way that ArcGIS Online works, and it's really important in the way that it allows you to collaborate and collect a lot of data with a lot of different people into one map. We're not doing it so much that way. I always want all this, and we do that when we're in class. We all go out to different parts of the campus and collect a bunch of data, and in an hour and a half we come back and there's all this data on the map. But I think the process of you building it out from start to finish is more important than me building it out and having you all go collect data into the same map. So, collector app. All right. Now, since we, since our GPS units, our phones, aren't professional grade, they don't have the accuracy down to a few feet or even sub-foot, it's useful to come back into ArcGIS Online. In ArcGIS Online, edit data to increase accuracy. So what in the world does that mean? Well, let me just go to ArcGIS Online and look, and I'll give you an example. So y'all, can y'all see me logging into ArcGIS Online?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So part of what you're going to do is you're going to refer to the exercise that walked you through creating these things. And if you have any problems, I'll help step you through it for sure. But so here I am. I'll go to my my groups, and in my groups, I'm going to find y'all's group. CEG YM1 2020. And that's mine. There's Robert Wilson's. There's Andy's. Let's look at all the group content that he just did his today. All right, so some of you did not share yours with the group, right? See what I'm saying? So Andy's is in this group. Robert is Andy. I could open my collector app and I could see his map and I could GPS points right on it. Also, now make sure you open the map and not the feature layer. The map has that layer in it. So I'm going to open this map. and see if he, yep, so he collected some stuff. It looks like he only collected a restroom, right? Oh, no, oh, no. He was at Weaver Park. Look at him, he's breaking the law. Park. Okay, so this is what he did. Okay, there's a picnic table, a restroom, and a water fountain. Okay, and there's a an asphalt trail. Now it's pretty neat that he did this, but since it's in the group, and I'm in the group, and I, based on how he built the layer, I can edit it. Okay, so if I click edit here, and I'm going to change the base map. Maybe, yeah. I'll change the base map to some imagery. All right. Now, okay, so there's a picnic bench. Now let's say you could see that's the picnic bench right here. It's a little bit off. That's it right there. So I'm gonna click that point and drag it. When I get a little hand, I can make it a little more accurate by editing within ArcGIS Online. Okay, and that's the water fountain there. It's a little bit off. Move it a little bit over to there. Okay. He did an area there, that shelter as well. Polygons are hard to do. Oops. Polygons are hard to do, but I could edit this path. All right, so to edit a path, you double click it or click it slowly twice, and I can move these vertices. So the editing here is a little bit different than, oh, don't want to do that, than in ArcMap, but if you tinker with it enough, or you can contact me with questions, you can make your data a little bit better.
So Pete, if he had streamed that, it would have
probably been better, but I bet it wouldn't have been perfect.
Okay.
But look at the neat thing. It's going to show who edited it now. So it'll show that I edited it. So, you know, going back in here and tweaking your data a little bit's not bad. I mean, in a professional world, you'd probably have a GPS unit that was much higher accuracy, right? But it's nice to be able to come in here and fix it a little bit. I also tell my students a lot, and something that didn't come through this semester because we didn't have a lot of time together doing GPS. Just because you have a GPS unit doesn't mean it's the best tool to GPS something. For instance, this parking lot right here. If I had a parking lots layer, I would heads up digitize it on top of an aerial photograph because I could do it more accurately that way. Just because you have a GPS unit doesn't mean GPS and this shed roof is the best tool for that job. I like for y'all to use it for these things just to see how polygons work with it and just to use the tool some, but it's not the best tool for everything, all right? I would heads up digitize that roof instead of trying to GPS it. But I do want y'all to create every type of a layer for every type of geometry, a few of them. I'm gonna probably have you create a minimum of maybe 5-point layers, 2 or 3 line layers, and 1 or 2 polygon layers. Points are pretty easy. You know, you can have a manholes layer, a fire hydrants layer, a stormwater drain layer, a signs layer, a trees layer. Points, I mean, you can get a lot of points layers. As far as lines go, you can have sidewalks, you can have roads, you can have in your neighborhood, what else might be lines? Maybe fences. You could do property lines, but there's too many property lines to even start GPSing a bunch of property lines.
Could you do speed bumps as lines?
Yeah, you might. Now, see, that's a really good example, Steve. The question was, would you do speed bumps as lines? And I'm glad you asked that question because that takes us back to this database design. That question of geometry is not quite always as easy as you think. I mean, sure, manholes are points all the time, but for speed bumps, I mean, are lines or points better? I mean, you know, a line for a speed bump, if you're mapping at a large scale, showing a small area, which a neighborhood usually would be, it might be nice to see a line where that thing is. But if you were actually just inventorying all of the speed bumps in town, you'd probably just go do 0.7, even though they're kind of linear features, right? Think about something like rivers. You know, if a river you'd usually think of as a line layer, just like roads. You usually think of roads as a line layer. But if you look at a map of, say, a campus like UNCA and even AB Tech, the roads on most of these, look, this is AB Tech right there. No, it's not. Never mind. So the roads on most of these, this shows, oh no, that's UNCA. So this shows a campus map really focusing on trees, but the roads layer is a polygon layer because you're mapping at such a large scale, small area. You want to show that aerial extent of a road, and roads often kind of intermingle with polygons, and this is exactly what it does on our campus, where roads kind of go into parking lots. Our campus is just like that. So in this case, this roads layer are polygons. That's the advantage of that is the mapping cartographic aspect of it is nice, but the disadvantage is you don't have the ability to put a name of a road on a line segment. If this was a line and this road was named Campus Drive all the way to here, if it was a line that started and stopped it, you'd have a name field and you'd label it by the name field. So oftentimes you end up having multiple representations of your data. You could have a polygon layer like this that doesn't distinguish where one road starts and stops, but it's a great cartographic layer for building out the map. But it might be useful to have a line layer that showed that you were able to capture things like attributes of the name of the road and things like that. So you really got to think through how you want to represent the data. And again, sometimes you may have more than one representation. Maybe you have a roads layer that are lines and a roads layer that are polygons.
So you can do that. So you could put a lines layer of roads with the names of the roads underneath that and then stick that on top of it.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Yeah, we end up doing all kinds of weird stuff you wouldn't think maybe sometimes it's a good idea, maybe sometimes it's not the best idea. But so yeah, I think that's a very good question. So thinking through all this stuff is the database design aspect of it. And planning ahead will save you a lot of headaches and time in the future. That said, you're never going to plan for everything. You're going to go out there and you're going to start collecting all these little line segments on speed bumps. And about halfway through the project, you're going to be like, how in the world did I do these as lines? I should have done them as points. And that's okay. Maybe you modify your design in real time and start updating it a different way, or maybe you just go with it. A lot of it's going to be just experience. I mean, this being the first time you do it, certainly don't expect there not to be a lot of issues with what you've done. And that's why you do it, because doing it one time, you just realize, gosh, I should have done it this way, or it would have been better that way. Or you might be like, well, maybe it would have been, I don't know. So that's kind of the idea, is to go through it from start to finish, think through the layers you want to collect data for, come up with a design document that has the name of the layer, the geometry type, the fields that you're going to put in it, along with the type of field. Is it a number or a text field? And if you wanted to have a drop-down list, you need to come up with all the values in the drop-down list. It's a constant thing. Every time I go to do a tree survey, I'm like, well, golly, you really should have a drop-down list for the trees, for the name of the tree or the type of the tree: maple, oak, elm, holly. Just looking out my window, tupelo. locust, hemlock, but you really want to drop down list, but then you start thinking, well, God, there's like 300 native species of tree around here, plus, a bunch of ornamentals. I mean, do you really want to drop down lists that big? So drop down lists are really good because they restrict what people can put in. They keep people from misspelling hemlock, and they narrow down what you can do. But when it's a super long list, I mean, I don't have a great answer for whether you'd want every tree in it or not. Usually when we do this in class, we make a drop down list for tree names, and we come up with about 20 tree names, and about 94% of the students couldn't pick out an oak from a hemlock anyway. So I tell them just to pick whatever, that's not the point, is not to pick the right tree. There's a lot of good tree apps. I was planning on using a tree app that people could scan a leaf and figure out what tree it is this semester. But, we weren't really planning on a pandemic either. So best laid plans, right? So that's what we're going to do for the next couple weeks. And so you're going to build out a database. You're going to collect a bunch of data into it. I'm going to have to come up with a minimum number of layers. And I don't know how I want you to spend some time out there GPSing. I don't know how to come up with a minimum number of features necessarily, or a minimum amount of time you have to GPS. But if you get started thinking through what's going to be in your layers, if you didn't do that project, the collector app, creating your first map, you'll definitely want to do that. You might even step through that process again. That's how I learn everything. The first few times I did collector, I did their exercise, and I did it 2 or 3 times. And every time I taught it in class, I'd run back through it, So just kind of getting familiar with those steps that you have to go through from start to finish. Adding in the database design, coming up with your own layers, geometries, attributes is a big is a big addition to the project. That's not really an entry-level GIS person's job. It's usually the GIS administrator that designs a database and does all that stuff, and then the GIS tech or analyst goes out and collects the data. But understanding the process, I think, is really important for y'all, and it just gives you a leg up on it all. So, all right. So, what I'm going to ask, I'm going to put this document in there, and it's going to be I'm going to put this document in Moodle. I think I'm going to put a couple of different assignments under the final project. One is going to be for you to submit me a database design in the next week. The earlier you can get it submitted and review it with me, the quicker you can get out and start collecting data. And then you're gonna probably submit me a map as well once you GPS a bunch of stuff and edit it. And I'll look at your work in ArcGIS Online also. So I'll come up with some kind of grading rubric as well. This is not meant to, it's meant to be a good learning process and experience, and any problems you have, I want to help you through them. I want you to get through it. I'm not going to throw you out there to the wolves. And so I want us all to get through the whole process and make 100 on it. Okay. You also need to take your GPS test eventually. I don't know. I haven't even looked to see if you guys taken it yet. All right. All right. Yes.
Sorry, hit remute again. For the test 3, it doesn't quite say what all the material is going to cover. It's just everything from test 2 to 3.
It is just GPS. Okay. So, and I actually, let me show you all something here with everyone here.
You gave us a good tip on most of what was going to be on it came from a certain.
It's mostly that PowerPoint.
Right.
Okay.
Thought that was something.
If we look here, see this GPS PowerPoint there? That's
Mhm.
most of it. You want to read through this GPS tutorial here. I'm going to call it required. It's got a little bit more in-depth information about some stuff. There's some flash-based, and this is optional. Flash is a Adobe technology for animation on the web. There's some Flash kind of animations in the Trimble one that Flash is kind of a buggy security nightmare. So you don't need to do those animations if you don't want to install Flash. Flash is not going to be available for very much longer period. Do this PowerPoint, read through that tutorial, and you should be fine on the test. The test is open book, open notes, all that stuff. So the final thing that I'll leave with you is that my other class, I have another another class doing GPS, and in that class, I talked over this PowerPoint. I did a video of it. So if you want to listen to me talk for 54 minutes about that GPS PowerPoint, I know you all do.
Oh yeah.
And I actually added some to that PowerPoint too, actually. So if you've already breezed through it, check it out again. I added some pretty cool stuff to it about GPS and privacy. There's some good articles about how we're all being tracked and they know where you are. I call it pretty cool in a not very cool way. I mean, there's some cool parts about the technology and there's some not so cool parts about the technology.
Okay, cool. Thanks so much.
Yeah, I will I'm going to link that up in here right now.
All right, Pete, I have two things when you're
Yes.
ready.
I'm ready.
Number one, how do I load that map that I made from Collector onto, how do I share it with the group? Somehow or another, I missed that.
To share it with the group, and you go into ArcGIS Online, and I'll just show you here.
Okay.
GIS Online, and I'll just go to content. Now I'll go to my organization. And that way I can pull up you as a user here, or go to my members of my organization and find you. Which one of these two? It's this one is the one that you,
Yeah.
because it's the most recent.
Yeah.
I can look at your items. And so it's going to show your items here, okay? And over here, this is how it's shared. This is only shared with you. This is shared with the whole world. And so click on an assignment. Well, you can do it a couple of ways. If you just check it, you can share here.
Okay.
Okay. And so really, in a class like this, I really want y'all to share everything you do with our group, just because I can go look at the group and see stuff really easy. So when you share, you can share it with the owner, the organization, everyone in the world, or you can edit group share. You're only a member of one group. And so that's share it with the group.
I just share it with the group. Okay.
And I'm going to let you step through that. I'm not going to click OK, just so you.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll do it. All right, that's one. The next thing is I really need to get with you on this assignment 8. Every step of the way, I'm getting dogged.
Okay. The editing.
I worked on it again today, and I get to a spot where my computer is not showing me what it's asking me to find.
Can we do it in the morning? Let me look at my calendar.
I cannot do it tomorrow morning.
Okay.
I have to take my nephews out tomorrow morning.
Sure. How about
any other day? Any other day.
Can you do it in the afternoon, or you want to do it on Thursday morning?
Thursday.
Thursday works for me.
Yeah. Thursday, what time?
Let me look here and see. Let me see if I can find the calendar somewhere. Does anyone else have a question?
No, I'll just get with you tomorrow on that inquiries one.
Plan on
I
doing
was,
it when you get home, okay, Kyle, or shortly after.
Yeah, I'll just shoot you a text when I get to the house.
That sounds great.
All right. Thanks, Pete.
was-
Talk to you tomorrow.
All right. Eldridge, did you have anything?
yeah, I had a quick question to see if I
Sure.
shared that correctly.
Uh-huh. You want to see if you did? Let me just look over here real quick at yours. I'll go to back to my organization.
I believe I just shared everything I had with the group. So I just, yeah.
Yeah, let's see, my organization. Where's my, there. It takes a while to get used to ArcGIS Online, and I usually just kind of throw students into it in this class. So I can look at your content here, and it looks like only your park's EGM. You can see how it's what's shared with the world.
Oh, yeah.
See, so
okay.
select these other three. When you select it, you get these options. Okay.
All right. Appreciate it so much.
Yep. And you can also move them into this CEG 111 folder if you want. You created that folder, but there's nothing in it. Everything's just
Okay.
like at your top level.
Okay, I'll go ahead and move those in too. Appreciate it so much.
All right. All right.
Have a good week.
Yeah. Hit me up if you need anything.
All right.
All right. Steve, let's see. Thursday, I'm pretty wide open. Let's do it. What time? Anytime you say what time in the morning, and we'll do it.
Anytime, 8 o'clock, 8:05.
8. Okay. 8:05.
Is that too early?
Nah, I'm good with that.
Okay.
Sure. Yep. Get it.
8 o'clock's fine.
All right. All
8
right.
o'clock Thursday, Pete. Okay, cool, man. I appreciate it. I'm going to try to send that stuff to the group right now.
All right. Thanks a lot. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm probably going to take a little break, and then I'll be working later tonight. So,
All right, cool, man. Thank you.
Yep. See y'all. Have a good one.